Hi. In this video, we will discuss the matrices in R. So most statistical inferences, such as regression analysis and analysis of variance, are better described when we use matrix representation. So even the R or some other statistical software have ready-made function for linear regression or logistic regression. But if you develop a new model, always you have to code everything from scratch. And if the matrix calculation is very fast in statistical software, it's very efficient to do all analysis, all calculation. And statistical languages such as R, S+, MATLAB, Gauss, and OX, they specialize in matrix calculation. So matrix calculation is very fast, even though some other algorithms are much slower than, for example, the C language. Okay, so I will use the R console to see how matrix works. In the first video that we do is just basics. So how to define a matrix? You can define matrix by the matrix function. For example, if I put 0 and we specify number of rows and number of columns, we can generate the 2x3 matrix. That we have 2 rows and 3 columns and all 0. Or if you put 1 to 6, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 elements. Then we can define matrix in this way. So yeah, so we can define the matrix from these entries. If we specify an option that by row is true, then A becomes this way. So 1, 2, 3 at first in the first line, first row. Yeah, so some options can be abbreviated. So basically the number of rows and number of columns, basically these have to be specified every time. So if you just write in this way, the A is the same matrix as this. There are some useful functions related to matrices. So number of rows of A, the number of rows for A is 2. So n row function of A is equal to 2. So this is convenient, for example, to implement some code for each row. So then you have to keep, for example, the for loop. You have to use the for loop for rows. Then how many times we repeat? Then we have to repeat the number of rows in A times. And call returns the number of columns. Dimension of A returns 2, 3. So 2 rows and 3 columns. So this is relatively minor function, but the row of A, so 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. So the first row, we always have 1, and second row, always 2. I don't use these functions often. The column of A also return a similar result. You can access to the specific entry of an A by specifying this, the 2, 2. So this is the second row, second column. So element in second row and second column. So A is this matrices. So 2, 2. Second row, second column. This is 4. So of course, we can access the multiple elements at once. For example, the A1 nothing. So this is just the everything from first row. So this is the same as 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so first row and first to third column, or all columns. And the same thing for column. So this returns the second column. But actually the R does not distinguish the row vector and the column vector. So both are vectors. So R doesn't recognize this as 1x2 matrix or 2x1 matrix. The R doesn't recognize in that way. So we have to be careful. If we put as matrix, if you type as matrix of A, nothing, the 2, then we pick up the second column of A as matrix, so the 2x1 matrix. In this way, then we can extract 2x1 matrix. But if you, in default in R, so this returns just a vector, two-dimensional vector. So row vectors and column vectors are not distinguished. Yep. So that's it. Yeah, of course you can pick up any combination of columns or rows. So A1, C1, 3. This is the first column and the third column of A and first row of A. You can also change elements. For example, we changed the 2, 3. So second row, the third column of A as 100. We can change the element by this way. So then we get this. So 6 becomes 100. So another way to define a matrix is, at first we make several vectors. So suppose W and H. So W is the weight of 3 babies, and H is height of 3 babies in centimeter. Then, okay, so 2 vectors, then we have the C bind. So this is the column. So bind column. C bind function of WH. So this becomes 3x2 matrix. So the first column becomes W and second column is H. We combined these two as column vectors and into matrices. And R bind function, so bind rows. So this is, okay, so this use W and H as row vectors. So then R bind WH is this matrix. The first row is W, second row is H. So of course, you can directly define a matrix by using R bind function and declaring 2 vectors. For example, 1, 2 vector and 3, 4 vector. If you bind as row vectors, then A becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2x2 matrix. So in this way, you can define matrix. So yeah, there are several ways to define matrix. Yep. Yeah, also the matrix, you can define matrix with NA entry. So if you don't have to set initial values, you can leave it as NA. So this is sometimes convenient when you code something. So yeah. Okay, so next time that we do operations on matrices.